This is my first show in Atlanta.
Atlanta debut right here live at the Print Shop.
Yep.
Pretty amazing. You got a tour coming up out here.
Yeah. Yeah, I got my first headlining tour. Just had my first headlining show at the Exit Inn. You were there.
I was there. It was really good.
Wild. Yeah,
Really
I've been basically opening up for other people for the past 2 years, pretty much kind of post-COVID, and just kind of figuring it since I started this whole process. And now, yeah, like I guess people want to come see me, and that's wild.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have an almost sold out tour that's been up for sale for like 5 days, and it's pretty wild that it's happening. And so yeah, I can't wait to go out and play these songs for people and meet people.
Let's talk about the Exit In show in Nashville. The Exit In show is on the top of my mind because I was there. I watched your emotion come out and how much gratitude and how thankful you were. And you said a couple things that were almost heartbreaking to me. And one of the things were, I've never been cool my whole entire life, and you guys are making me feel a little less uncool right now. It hit me, man. It hit me. Can you tell me where that came from?
Growing up, I was very quiet. I wasn't a popular kid in school, and I wasn't cool. I was a little fella. I grew up a boxer. My dad was a fighter, and so I kind of expressed myself through boxing, and then I didn't really talk. So when you don't really talk, it's really hard to be cool. It's hard to be like a cool kid when you don't talk to nobody. And I'd say the question that's been asked me most of my life is, do you ever talk? I just kind of floated around a couple friends that I loved, you know, kind of hung out with. And that was about it. There was like just a couple people that knew me, and my siblings and my family knew me, and I spent a lot of time out in the woods, and I was kind of a weird kid. I mean, honestly, growing up, I didn't, like I said, and I had a lot of trauma growing up, and honestly, I just didn't really feel like talking. And so that didn't really make me a cool kid at all. So I spent a lot of time listening to people rather than talking, and that's kind of where I learned, I don't know, just kind of how to discern kind of bullshit and everything. You know, I don't know if I could say that on here, but
No, you can say whatever you want.
But yeah, I kind of like, I could just sit there and listen and kind of watch somebody dig a hole, and I could be quiet and watch them do it, or be quiet and watch somebody like tell the truth. I just was more of like this fly on the wall. I felt like my whole childhood, and nobody really knew I was there.
You know, it's very interesting. What I see here, you know, is this kid that has been silent for so long, that is now blossoming at this point. And you said that not a lot of people knew who you were, and it's pretty amazing because everyone's gonna know who you are, you know. And that's the irony here. I really feel that. I feel like I have you here at a pivotal moment. For me personally, but for you and your career as well. I'm no Nostradamus, but I'm a pretty smart guy, you know, and I can see what's going on. And I think right now, my prediction is in less than 2 years' time, I'm gonna be like, I can't fucking believe Steven Wilson Jr. was playing in my basement. I don't know, I have a lot of favorites on this record, but I always tend to play Cuckoo again when it comes on. It's a fun song. It is. Tell me about Cuckoo. Where did it come from?
Well, I wrote that song with Jeffrey Steele and Travis Meadows. I remember Travis had this one line that kind of started it all. It was like, one more thing in a long line of things I can't control. And I was like, that was it. Like, that was all right. And we wrote that song, and we laughed like we've never laughed before. We wrote it in an hour and a half, 2 hours. It came out real quick, and we just laughed our asses off the whole time, the whole song. We thought we just wrote this like really stupid song that nobody would ever hear. This is back when I was a staff writer. I wasn't an artist. And it was like none of us were gonna cut it and release it. We were like, who do we pitch this to? Like, this is weird as hell. And we just thought it was just a funny, weird song. And it was very much like a working man song. Like, I really channeled my dad and channeled Jeffrey's dad, who's a mechanic, and my brother runs my dad's body shop. And I really wanted to channel like my brother's energy. Like, I really could feel like that. I wanted a song that he would turn on in the shop and he would just start skipping across it, because it would just like connect to him. It would say everything that he wanted to say. I worked in a lot of blue-collar jobs before I went to college, while I was in college, and I got a lot of back problems because of it too, because it was a lot of heavy-duty, serious work. So I've spent a lot of time in the blue-collar world.
Yeah.
And so really, it's it became like a bit of an anthem for the working person, the working man, and the working woman that is just kind of had it in it, not giving up, but giving up. Not giving up on life, but giving up on trying to make sense of it all and just grinding. And it's really for the person in that grind of their life that it has to keep going no matter what. Hopefully that song gives them a little bit of gas. Hopefully they don't speed. My dad was cool, which was weird. I'm a junior, and my dad was a fighter and is kind of a notorious fighter. He had this really big personality, and he was a notorious boxer, and everybody kind of revered him. So I was able to kind of live in his shadow very comfortably. I didn't feel like I needed a personality. I could just kind of live in his. And then when he died, that's a whole other story. I had to kind of figure out where I was in that whole spectrum, because that shadow went away and the light was on me.
One of the points of contention in my life was my dad. My parents split up when I was a couple years old, and I would go visit my dad on the weekends, and he was this larger-than-life character, much like what you describe your dad as. And he was generous, great, all these things, and he got lost along the way and became someone completely different. He passed away. He ended up taking his own life, which was very difficult for me. And we had this dysfunctional relationship, very dysfunctional, and I felt like it was either going to be me or him. When it ended up being him, immediately I told people that I forgave him and I was over, but it wasn't the truth. It was a point of contention every single day of my life. It was, and it was on the top of my mind, always. I told you that I hike in the morning, and this is when I would contemplate life. But at the top of my mind, every day when I would start, he's there. And there were all these negative feelings. One day, I listened to a tune called Father's Son. I listened to Father's Son, and it literally bypassed my mind and went straight to my heart. And I'd never really had anything like that happen to me. It took me back. And digging in and hearing your articulation and your love for your father helped me forgive and love my father again. And I wanted to just personally thank you for that. It's a big deal, and Stephen Wilson Jr., thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Adam.
Yeah.
Thank you. That song is a gift. They all are, really. But that one especially, because I needed it maybe just as bad as you did. Right when my dad died, I started the record right after he died. I got $3,333.33 from his life insurance check, and I recorded the first 4 songs with it. And that's kind of what started it all. So it's all he even funded it. His death literally funded the whole thing, or at least the beginning of it. And those songs ended up funding the other songs, which is wild. But when I got to Father's Son, I was kind of in the middle of the journey of trying to reconcile that whole thing, because he died at 59, too young. I said goodbye to him on an iPhone 8 in the middle of Kentucky, and that's not how it was supposed to go down. And I was really, probably like you, very angry, and it was on the top of my mind for years, like you said. I woke up with it, I went to bed with it. It was like a wet blanket I wore everywhere I went. So when I wrote that song, it dried up that blanket in a way. It kind of helped me shed it. So it was a big gift for me, because it helped me kind of understand. So that song was really special for me. I wrote it, obviously from my dad, and my dad's last words were on the phone were, "Write a good song for me," and "I love you." He said it 4 times, and then he died literally right there. Yeah, that song was very cathartic, because even when I sing it today, it just it gets a little bit easier. It's like a bit of a release. And, you know, my brother, too, being his father's son, I kind of have him in it, and I have, like, my grandfather in it, and like, it became, like, just so much bigger, and then I started singing the song, and then I found out that the song, even though it was everything I thought it had to do with me, it had not nearly as much to do with me as I thought it. It had so much to do with so many more people like yourself. It's my dad's way of living on, and it's my way to try to keep him alive. And so, yeah, he's still alive in the weirdest way possible through that song.
Son of Dad is your new record, and you released that the end of 23, is that correct?
Like September, yeah.
September
15th.
of 23.
Yeah, the day he died.
It has, the day your father died was, what was that?
Yeah, the album came out on September 15th. It was the 5-year anniversary of his death.
That's when your father died, September 15th?
Yeah.
My dad died on September 15th, 2019.
Whoa.
Wow, that's a trip. Okay. So it's gotten critical acclaim, this record, you know. Billboard, Rolling Stone. Rolling Stone named it one of the top albums of the year. I think Holler Magazine named it Album of the Year.
Correct, yeah. Wild.
How does that make you feel?
Nervous.
Really? Nervous?
Yeah.
That's an acceptable answer.
Yeah, I don't do well with compliments, and it makes me nervous. Yeah, and it makes me very happy, of course. So yeah, it makes me feel like very overwhelmed in a joyous way, because I feel like my dad's hearing that, because it's like a critical mass thing. I feel like when the consciousness of humanity concentrates on a singular thing, that critical mass kind of, the other world somehow picks up on it. That gives me, if anything, it helps maybe corroborate that maybe my dad noticed. He loved trophies, and he loved to win and stuff like that. If those came in a trophy form, I would just put it on his shelf.
Year to be young, 1994. Some really cool references in there. I mean, 1994, Adam Blank, I'm in college, you know, and I remember it very well. Yeah. But yeah, you were into the music, and I'm guessing Nirvana.
Yeah, big time, man. That was the year kind of I got introduced to it all, and kind of that's the year Kurt Cobain died, and I was country as hell, and like grunge music didn't make it to Indiana until it had already kind of taken over the world by the time it came to my doorstep. And so I was really late to the game. The way Kurt wrote was just groundbreaking to me. He wrote with all this like allegory and used so much metaphor and so much poetry, but still had so much potency. He wasn't just being poetic for the sake of being poetic. And I really gravitated towards his writing style.
Your influences, I've heard in the past, Mellencamp, obviously, is from your area.
Yeah.
Are you a Mellencamp fan?
Oh, yeah. He's like the soundtrack to my childhood.
I love Mellencamp, too. Have you met him?
I did. I met him when I was a kid. Oddly related to him. My mom was a Mellencamp. It's a big family. And I have a grandma Mellencamp. The family's really kind of big and divided. And my dad actually dated his sister for a time, my mama's cousin. So I actually went to his wedding when I was at like 12 years old because of my dad dating his sister. And the day before the wedding, we were out at this cabin, and he was there because they were like getting all the wedding, because they got married in Seymour, where I'm from, and this like right on the White River. And it was this crazy, beautiful wedding, and it was like unlike anything my country ass had ever seen. But it was still very country, still very Mellencamp. It wasn't like big city, but it was just, they had like horse and buggies take you down to the thing. It was just like, whoa, I mean, it was like it was a big, big thing from my childhood. But the day before, like, we went and hung out, and they were getting ready, and John was sitting in a cabin smoking cigarettes. That's all I remember.
Yeah.
And I sat down next to him, and he told me a filthy joke that I wish I'd do anything to be able to remember, but it was inappropriate.
Inappropriate?
I remember,
that means it was great.
Yeah, but it was still like, I remember being like really clever and really witty, and I think his sister Janet yelled at him like, John, don't do that. And
what are you saying to the kids?
Yeah, like, don't tell him that. But he was like, he went back to chain smoking, like chuckling. That's my only memory of John Mellencamp.
That's a good one.
I'm sure he doesn't remember.
That's better than most.
Yeah.
He probably doesn't.
Yeah, so he's kind of like this kind of, I don't know what you call him. He's like a character in a movie more so than he was a person for me growing up, because that's kind of how he sat in the script.
Yeah.
I've been bitten by the song bug for a long time. I was on a school bus when I was like 13, and I had a traumatic childhood, and I was very worried about my mama growing up. She was with some very abusive men, and you know, I was always worried about something very bad happening to her. I spent my whole childhood worrying about it. And then one time I was on a school bus, and this song called Don't Take the Girl came on, which had nothing to do with my mom.
Oh, that's like a killer.
Sing by Tim McGraw, and it just destroyed me. Like a preteen kid on a school bus on a farm route. It's not a good look to be crying on a school bus. And I couldn't stop it. Like, there's nothing I could do to prevent it. I was just like, you know, just kind of throwing my backpack over my head, and I was, what in the world just happened to me? Ever since that day, I guess trying to pay it forward in whatever way possible, because that was the day when I knew, like, songs are, and music is magic. It isn't just notes and sounds and beats, and
it's pure energy.
Yeah, it is, and it's got something so much bigger than anything else. It's like all of us combined, and I don't know how to explain it. And as a scientist, I used to try to like figure out how to explain everything, but I've let go of it, and I'm just kind of good with the magic now.
And I want you to have this. This is a 59.
Dude, that's an insane amp.
This is a 59. This is what Keith Richards got his sound in. This showed up. So now this needs a little bit of work, but it's a 59, and there was a lap steel that came with this. And there's a guy named Bobby Jr. who plays lap steel for my friend Mark Broussard. And so I gave Bobby Jr. the lap steel.
Bobby.
But it was really, well, he has the lap steel, and it's the same finish as this. And at some time in the 60s, a guy was like, I'm here for the gig. You know what I mean? He had his lap steel and this. And so I've been waiting for the right person to give this amp to. And it's a pretty special amp, but I'd like you to have this. And again, these are instruments that come to me for a reason, and I'm doing the right thing with them. You know
Can I
what mean?
ask you, were these meant to be demolished?
Demolished. And I found that one literally was in the crane's claw.
That's crazy.
This one I walked by and happened to find.
I don't even know. This is crazy. Wow.
It's insane. They show up in my life. Literally, that cost me 7 cents per pound. It was bought as steel. So you have to think about it. What does that weigh? 20 pounds maybe? Yeah. So I paid $1.40 for it.
Dude, that is wicked.
Yeah.
Dude, are you serious?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, man.
God.
What else you got, man?
Let's talk about the scientist thing for a second.
Sure.
So interesting. Obviously, you grew up boxing. We discussed that, and that was your family sport. Your father was a boxer. And then I guess you went to college and became a microbiologist. How did you go from scientist to musician and songwriter?
Growing up in my town, I needed a ticket out, and science was my ticket out. I knew it would get me out of town, and I knew it would keep me out of town, and I loved that town. But it was when I was 18, I had I wanted to get out, and I wanted to get away as far as possible. I was trying to run away from everything. There's a lot of religious stuff, and science and religion don't usually, at least at that time in my mind, they're on different sides. They're on different sides of the field, and they don't play together. And I was like, I want to see what that side of the field looks like, because I've been over on this side of the field, and man, it was a lot with my kind of fundamentalist religious upbringing. So science gave me a lot of clarity, and I was good at science. I was always really good at it in school. It just clicked to me. All those academics were just, and my dad didn't know what to do with that at all. I used to go to the library as a kid and ride my bike. It was a 12-mile ride one way and 12 miles back, and I would go get science books and just pack my backpack full of them. And I would go home and I would take notes. I'd basically rewrite the books, and I'd have these piles of notebooks of the books that I read, because, you know, I didn't want to have to go checking back out at the library. I only had 30 days to kind of, so I was constantly trying to just glean information from them. So I was always, like, as a kid, like, obsessed with nature and obsessed with science, and just trying to figure out how all these systems were working. Because in religion, there was nothing was working. There were no systems. It was just like pure chaos. So like the science was like the opposite of that. So getting a degree made a lot of sense, because everybody was like, hey dude, you're good at science. You should do that. Like, you can be a scientist. You don't have to work on cars. You don't have to work in a factory. Like, you got a brain. And I went and I used it. I knew I was good at music, but I never thought, like, it wasn't on career day. It wasn't like, oh, go be a songwriter, go be a musician. It was like, everybody was like, no, go be a scientist. So I did that, and I just played music as a hobby, and I played in indie rock bands, because indie rock became like my thing. By the time I became a young adult, that's kind of what I was really obsessed with. So I played in those bands and kind of cut my teeth in those bands, and graduated from college and was in this band called Autovon. We ended up getting signed to Epic Records. I ended up like touring as a lead guitar player in the band and like writing songs. I wasn't a singer or anything. And I started singing background vocals in the band. That's kind of where I started singing, period. I never sang as a kid. Like, I was so shy. Like, and if you'd have told me that I'd be doing this, like, nobody, including me, would have believed you. I'm telling you. I graduated school, started the band, and it took off, and we were touring a ton, touring with national acts, and that's kind of where I cut my teeth on the road, kind of learned how to perform in ways and kind of like work with a crowd. Even though I was the lead guitar player, I was still like a big part of the sonic tapestry of the band, and I was an eager player. I was playing way too many notes back then, but I was really into it. And then I met my wife, and she had a little boy who became my stepson, and I kind of had to put, you know, the indie rock band, basically I had to say bye to that. And I went and got a job working in R&D for Mars, the food company. They offered me a job because I was doing like these contract gigs for them. And they offered me a salary, and like, being a poor kid from Southern Indiana, it was more money than I'd ever seen. And I was like, well, I gotta do that. I was making like $16,000 a year in that indie band, living in a van. So I took the job, but I could not stop writing songs. And because of that band, I gotta say, I was really grateful, because I got to be put in some writing rooms in Nashville, and I kind of got to see how the machinery of Nashville songwriting, and how like songs, like, oh, there's like people that actually do this, and like they dedicate their whole lives to songwriting. You know, you don't have to be an artist, you can just be a songwriter. And I found out like, oh, and then it kind of came back to that Tim McGraw "Don't Take the Girl" moment. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I want to do. And I'd already had this degree, but I kept working as a scientist and was writing every day in the lab. And I just got to a point after working for the company, they were an incredible company, took great care of me. And I had this boss there that took me aside, and he saw me writing all the time. He knew what I wanted to do. I was good at science, but he could tell where my passion was. And he's like, you know, I just want to let you know they're about to put the golden handcuffs on you here. And I was like, what do you mean, golden handcuffs? He's like, yeah, they're about to give you a promotion. They're kind of grooming you for the next level, and it's coming. And you're kind of at a crossroads, because if you take it like I took it 30 years ago, like, your dreams of being a songwriter, they're going to be gone, because this is going to consume every bit of you. Right now, you can still write songs and do this job, but in 6 months from now, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to. And I just want to give you a warning. Like, that's a good problem. You're going to be making a lot more money. And I was like, okay, but that dream's it's gonna be gone, I'm telling you. And I was like, okay. And I thought about it for a long time, and it had been happening for years. Like, I kind of knew I didn't belong there. And like the voice was getting louder and louder and louder. So that kind of corroborated when he came and told me that. Like, it was like I was walking in, and it was like something was screaming at me to get the hell out of there. It's like, and then he sat me aside and told me the golden handcuffs thing, and that scared the hell out of me. And maybe like 6 weeks later or something, I can't remember exactly, but I put in my 2 weeks and I was gone. And everybody was there was like, what? Like, you're like, they're grooming you for management. Like, you're like kind of You're literally stepping up the corporate ladder, like, which it was everybody there was trying to do, and it was happening for me, and I just left it. And I went and bartended and waited tables and did everything I could to figure out how to get a publishing deal, because I knew like that's how I would really get into the song game. And I took publishing meetings and nobody wanted anything to do with me, to be honest. It was like this bro country era thing was happening real bad, and I didn't like it. I didn't know even how to participate in it. But I knew what kind of country songs I loved. And most people told me like, hey, you don't write enough songs about girls or trucks or beer. And it was always like, man, you like write real songs. That's what they would say. Like, we can't do nothing with that. And I was like, oh. But a real song was the reason why I got into this game, is because of a real song. And that's all I wanted to write were real songs. Like, if that was a bad thing, because he made it sound like it was a bad thing. I got many rejections. Then this guy named Chris Oglesby from BMG Publishing heard one of my weird songs that most people would have been like, this is a real song. Mm-hmm. Can't do nothing with it. He was like, I love this, and I want to. He signed me on the spot. He brought me in his office and just said, hey, whatever this is you're doing, I love it. He's like, I know this isn't what people are wanting right now, but he's like, I think people need real songs, and I think for whatever it means, you're a real songwriter. And he began to kind of put me in rooms with other real songwriters, like those Larry Johnsons and stuff that wrote Don't Take the Girl, and those, not Larry Johnson himself, but those types of writers. And that's when I went to songwriting school. I got to write with Tom Douglas and, Jeffrey Steele and so many songwriting Hall of Famers, Nashville Songwriting Hall of Famers, which is it's one of the most prestigious Hall of Fames you can ever get into. And I got to sit in the rooms with these people and write dozens and if not 30, 40 songs with each of them, and kind of go to songwriting school. And I really just wanted to be a songwriter. I wanted someone to sing my songs. I just never in a million years thought it would be me.
You never thought that you were going to be singing your own songs?
No, never. Right before my dad died, I'd play him all my demos, and I would sing my demos. He would play them, and he loved a lot of my songs, but he's something he would be critical about more so than others. A lot of times he'd be like, why don't you just sing these songs? And I'd be like, Dad, I don't do that. That's not what I do. Someone else sings the song, I write the songs. So it was like a paradigm kind of line.
Was there a moment or a person that said, hey, who's this guy singing the song? What got you over the hump, so to speak?
Well, I mean, there was some, Chris would pitch these songs. Chris Oglesby from BMG would pitch the songs, and he would come back to me. He's like this cowboy dude. He'd be like, dude, like people are asking about these songs, like who's singing them? Like, do you want me to tell them? Like, what are you like? And I was like, no, I'm just a writer, Chris. I'm a writer. I don't sing the songs. And he was like, okay, dude. Anyway, but then my dad died. And really that's what broke it. I'd been like singing songs out in writers' rounds, and I would kind of sing when I had to. I would sing on the demo. I had no belief in myself. Like my dad always believed in me way bigger than I believed in myself, like on all facets of life. So he would say that, and then I would argue with him. Like he would say like an obvious thing, and I would tell him he was wrong. Yeah. And then when he died, I didn't have no one to argue with anymore. And like that guy that argued with him and told him, no, I don't sing the songs, that guy died with him. When he died, like my brain was rewired instantly. It was like a death of myself. The kid living in his shadow, like I mentioned earlier, the shadow was gone, and it was the light was on me. The spotlight was all on me now. Like, who are you, dude? Like, I was so attached to him in so many ways, and so that guy, like I said, that guy died. He didn't matter anymore. The guy that said, no, I don't sing the songs. Regretfully, I was like, well, I wish my dad could have heard these songs, like I'm going to sing these songs, and I'm going to sing them for him. I'm going to record them so he can hear them. Because it felt like the only way I could get to him anymore. Like I couldn't like pray to get to him. I couldn't meditate to get to him. I could only like sing to get to him. So selfishly, I just started singing, and it kind of, I guess, connected me with him. I went and played this festival like 2 weeks after he died, I canceled it. I was supposed to do it. It was this songwriters festival in Deadwood, South Dakota, and they had to, like, everybody do like a cover of a song at the end of the festival, and I do this cover of "Stand By Me." It's something I've always been haunted by that song, the Benny King song, and I do the kind of a weird version. I'd just been playing it in my living room for years and just singing it for nobody, just myself. And I went and did the festival, and it was actually very healing because a friend of mine kind of really prompted me to go out there, and because it's in the Black Hills and it's really spiritually charged land, and he's like, there's a reason you need to be here. And I was like, okay, well, whatever. And I was like just devastated. I was like just a shell of a man at that point. 2 weeks after he died, I probably hadn't slept in a week. I was in bad shape, and there was like 5,000 people at the end of this festival, big crowd. And like I said, I wasn't an artist. I was just a songwriter. And I went and sang "Stand By Me," and I can't explain it. I mean, there's video footage of it, but it doesn't do it justice. But it turned into like a revival, like in the middle of that song. It was like if I, doubted that I was an artist in that moment, I would have been the biggest fool in the world. It was like God's way of like making it blatantly obvious, and it's kind of how it had to go down, and it felt like I was wearing my dad on my shoulders the whole time. It was like this weird reversal of roles, and it was like a knighting of sorts, no, you're no longer a songwriter now. Like in that moment, literally when I sang that song on that stage, it was like, you're now different. And that's the moment when I knew, like, oh, everything's different. And I didn't know what I was going to do at that moment, but I knew it was never going to be the same again. So
everything is different. One thing about you, Stephen, that I think's very fitting for what you're talking about is you talked about a spotlight. And a lot of people concentrate on themselves, their ego, what's right here in front. And we live in this kind of spotlight consciousness, it's called. But I feel like your songwriting and you in general, whether you know it or not, you pay attention to what's in the floodlight. You pay attention to everything around. Without that, that's where all the beauty is. Mm-hmm. Most people were stuck right here. But without a reference of everything around it, what's right in front of you means nothing.
Yeah.
It's just something floating in space. Everything else is where the beauty is. And I feel like your artistry is second to none. It's incredible. I see pain, I see aggression, I see care, I see a big heart, I see a smart man, I see all kinds of stuff. And it's easy to identify all those characteristics in which I described when you're telling the truth. And I think at its core, you are telling the truth, and that is so refreshing. And where you came from as a shy kid to, boxer, to a scientist, to, an introverted songwriter that is now has this voice that is so unique, and now it's just coming out. It's the timeline on its own is an enigma, it is. And I'm just excited for you, man. I'm so glad to know you, to have this opportunity and this platform to really sit down with an artist that has been transformative for me personally is great. And I can't wait for everyone out there to find out about Steven Wilson Jr. Because if you haven't heard of this guy, do yourself a favor. This will blow your mind. Just it'll give you a pay raise. I promise you. You need this man in your life. I just can't say enough. And anything I can do to be a positive influence, to push you forward, if you ever need anyone that you can depend on, I know we don't know each other that well. I promise you can call me and you can depend on me. You mean that much to me.
Thank you, sir.
You do.
It means the world.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Steven Wilson Jr., you are the truth. And thank you so much for coming to the print shop. You and your lovely bandmates, man, what a special day, man. This is this is it for me. Thank you so much.
Same here as well. Been very special to me. Thank
I
you.
wish you the best of luck, and I can't wait to just watch it happen. I'm going to be on the sidelines giving you so much positive energy, and I'm going to tell everyone I know about you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It means the world. I need that energy.
Cool.
And it's been a real blessing, for real, to be able to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
Thank you.
That's a wrap.